Hello, everybody, and welcome to another One Stop Wrestling podcast. I'm Alex, and today I am joined in the reverent company of Rohit. And today we are going to be talking about WWE, AEW, and all wrestling championships. And our topic for today is: are there too many championships in wrestling? Rohit, how are you this evening, and how do you feel about today's topic?
I'm first of all, I'm doing quite good. Unfortunately, Alfonso won't be joining us today because he was attacked backstage by the nefarious one-stop wrestling general manager, and he's been taken to a local medical facility.
He's
I
always
hate
up
that
to no
word.
good, that one stop wrestling general manager.
Yeah, but I hate that local medical facility term. Just call it a hospital or something. But anyway, regardless of that, yeah, hope you're doing well. Hope the viewers or listeners are doing well. And yeah, in terms of the topic, it's quite an interesting one, and I'm ready to get stuck in really. So yeah,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a discussion that has been brought up over the past few years,
yeah,
but it hasn't really gone into great detail. So
mm,
yeah, we'll get into it. I mean, talking about championships, I mean, let's start with WWE.
yeah,
So I've counted 8 active championships. So we have the WWE Undisputed
mm,
Championship held by Roman Reigns,
yeah,
World Heavyweight Championship held by Seth Rollins, the Intercontinental Championship held by Gunther, the United States Championship held by Logan Paul, the Undisputed Tag Team Championships held by Damian Priest and Finn Balor, WWE Women's Championship held by Io Sky, Women's World Championship held by Rhea Ripley, and the Women's Tag Team Championship held by the Kabuki Warriors.
mm-hmm,
Now, obviously, NXT as well is a WWE's developmental brand, so we could class them under the same banner. They have the NXT
yeah,
Championship held by Ilya Dragunov, NXT Women's Championship held by Lyra Valkyria, NXT North American Championship held by Obafemi, and NXT Tag Team Championships held by Baron Corbin and Bron Breakker. And we move on to AEW, and they trump WWE. They have 9 active championships. So the
yeah,
AEW World Championship held by Samoa Joe, TNT Championship held by Christian, International Championship, held by Orange Cassidy, the Continental Championship held by Eddie Kingston, FTW Championship held by Hook, World Tag Team Championship held by Sting and Darby Allin, World Trios Championship held by the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn, the Women's Championship held by Tony Storm, and the TBS Championship held by Julia Hart. So they have 9 active championships. And then we talk about NXT. We'll also mention Ring of Honor as they're a sort of,
yeah.
other brand to
Side brand.
AEW.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
And they have the ROH World Championship held by Eddie Kingston, the ROH TV Championship held by Kyle Fletcher, the ROH Pure Championship held by Wheeler Yuta, the ROH World Tag Team Championship held by Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, the ROH Six Man Championship held by Bullet Club Gold, and the ROH Women's Championship held by Athena. Now, straight off the bat, that does seem like a hell of a lot of championships for
Yeah.
either company, really, to have. So, I mean, straight away, what are your thoughts? Is it too many for you for the top companies in America?
I think for America specifically, or at least Western, well, Mexico might be a bit different, but I would say at least for like, let's say the North American parts or like America specifically, I think it is to an extent. Now, main roster WWE have done well over the last few years to slim it down a little bit because I think at one point they might have had like 10, so they or 10 or 11, so they have slimmed it down a little bit, which I think honestly is a good move, and surprisingly because their roster is like one of the larger ones from any promotion, so surprisingly they have a little bit less.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, with AW again is somewhat justified because of the large roster, but at the same time, I do think it's too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Certainly in AEW, it does feel like sometimes the other championships get devalued when a championship
Yeah,
gets added. AEW over
Mhm.
the years have added the International Championship, the Trios Championship, the
Yeah.
TBS Championship, and as recently as the Continental Championship after Eddie Kingston won the Continental Classic. Um,
Mm. And there's rumors women's tag team titles as well potentially for AEW. So who
yes,
knows about that?
and it feels like AEW probably only need one women's champion. They don't have.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a lot of
They
women
have
on their
now.
roster,
They have now. I
but
would say.
how many women do they have where they can get them all on TV every week and push them all as stars where
Yeah,
they need two championships?
that's the question really. Yeah, because I thought, oh, if they need it now, since they got our Ring of Honor, I feel like that could be like the second women's championship if they needed one, and so
Yes.
they could merge like the TBS into like the AEW Women's Championship, call it like AEW World Women's Championship or something. I don't know what they would call it, but or Undisputed Women's Championship, something like that. They could do something like that, but yeah, I think they've done well to build up their female roster up a bit. They've got more names now, and now it just depends if they can utilize them better to make those women's titles like relevant, which I think they're starting to. But again, time will tell, really.
Yeah, I think they have two great champions at the moment in Tony Storm and Julia Hart, but it's just
Yeah.
whether they have enough TV time to create actual storylines for the championship and make them feel important.
Hmm.
Um, Similar as well in AEW with the trios championships. I think it was probably a good idea at the start because they did have a lot of factions, but again,
Yeah.
those championships have just fell by the wayside a little bit the past year or so, and they don't seem as important as they once did. And that also in turn devalues the World Tag Team Championships a little bit because we can get two members of a faction going for the tag team championships as well as the trios championships. So,
Yeah.
and obviously not just AEW, WWE as well. They have the women's tag team championships, which don't feel really that important and haven't done so for a while. Um, they don't really create any secondary storylines in the women's division in WWE. So those championships feel devalued. Now, obviously, last year, WWE brought back the World Heavyweight Championship, of which
Yeah.
Seth Rollins has been the champion ever since, after unifying the two world championships at WrestleMania 38, where Roman Reigns became the undisputed champion. So, do you think there should be one world champion in WWE, or do you think, are you happy with the fact they have two?
It's a tricky one because they kind of have like some periods of a few years where they're like their rosters are split between the brands and it's like quite a hard split. Then it loosens up, then it's like, oh, there is no split. Then it
Yeah.
becomes a split again. And because of that, it's like, oh yeah, we need sometimes two world champions, sometimes one's enough. And then obviously with Roman being less on TV and then like partially because Roman's contract, I'm assuming, as well as him trying to do other things, and also for him to like have that long reign where I'm guessing they're trying to surpass a certain record. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I
Hulk
think
Hogan.
that's why they felt like oh they needed to bring back another world championship in the meantime. That's active, that's there all the time, and it's a very similar thing to like not just the wrestling problem, I feel like, but like other combat sports, even like the UFC love introducing interim titles instead of vacating the title when a champion gets injured. So
Which is
then they're
what
gonna
AEW do.
exactly, which then obviously in turn is like, oh, why do I care about these two guys fighting? There's a world title on the line, interim, but world title on the line. Then whoever wins that interim world title eventually is gonna fight the champion, champion versus champion. It markets itself, and I feel like in terms of wrestling, sometimes they do it the same where like it's a bit laziness, like they don't know how to tell a story without a title on the line, or don't really
Yeah.
know what to do, or what creative they can do without a world title or any title on the line. So I feel like that's another reason why they keep introducing more championships for the wrestlers to compete for because like an easy storyline. They'll be like, oh, he wants that belt, so I'm gonna feud with the number one contenders or the champion themselves to get that belt, and there you go. That's your basic storyline. Then they can add the seasoning, I guess, if any.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. You obviously mentioned Roman Reigns being away and being,
Yeah,
you know, unactive in quite a few pay-per-views, and you go through those pay-per-views without a world championship match.
yeah,
So you made the point of that's, you know, one of the reasons why they introduced it, and they've said that on
yeah.
TV, and it makes perfect sense. But do you not think that it kind of presents Seth Rollins' World Heavyweight Championship as almost a consolation prize?
Yeah, it does. It does devalue it really, and that's why, like in other wrestling promotions, you still only have the one world title because you're like, oh, Roman isn't here. That's why Seth got another belt. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, and even WWE, I feel like I guess it's in kayfabe or in storytelling, whichever one you want to prefer. But I mean, Roman said it himself, like, oh, either you go and be the second best you can be, or you have another crack at number one. And
exactly.
it, so you kind of like devaluing it itself in the story. So it's just like, oh, so it makes you question: is Gunther's Intercontinental title, like the value of that title, worth more than Rollins's world title? Maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. Why, you know, Gunther's had a historic reign, a record breaking reign. Why couldn't they have just pushed that as, you know, this title is highly
Yeah.
prestigious? This is the secondary title. The
Yeah.
Intercontinental title always has been the secondary title. And nobody would think, oh, this is a consolation prize. It's a really, really good championship that can be
Yeah.
won. And then, you know, we've had that in the past where we had the world heavyweight title, I would say probably in the early 2010s, where you had, because it was a secondary title, and
Mm.
you had guys like Jack Swagger, Alberto Del Rio, Dolph Ziggler,
Yeah.
to name a few, that won the title, that you kind of think, you know, are they really world championship material? Certainly at the time that
Okay.
they won it.
Yeah.
And it kind of devalues the belt a little bit when you get names like that winning the championship. Whereas when you go back to when it was one title, you know, you had Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, The Rock, Steve Austin, Triple H, etc. You know, all huge names winning the title that, you know, put over the fact that this was the title. It was the one that everybody wanted to win. Um, so yeah, you make some good points there, and let's go on to ROH and
Hmm.
AEW. Do you think ROH? I mean, they have 6 active championships. Considering
Yeah.
they're almost the sort of secondary brand of AEW, do you think that a few of those could be merged with AEW in any way?
I think so, yeah, because especially when they bring like rest like especially in Ring of Honor, I've seen a lot. They bring over a couple of guys from New Japan here and there, CMLL, obviously Triple A before that, and sometimes they have those titles being defended. Like Zack Sabre Jr. defended the television title for New Japan on a Ring of Honor show. So I
Yeah,
feel like they do have a bit too much there. I think if they reduced it to four, I think you have the world title, you have the tag titles, then you have either uh, the pure tile or the TV tile, one of them as like a secondary tile. I think you probably don't need the TV tile there anymore. So I think you can merge that with the TNT tile or something
yeah,
and keep the pure tile as like not just something with a concept which makes it unique and different, but also as like a secondary tile like it historically was, and then keep the women's tile and get rid. I think they have the women's. Is it the women's tag team? Do they have a women's tag team?
they don't.
Tile?
No, it is just the
Okay.
women's title.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
then that's fine. Yeah, and keep the women's tile. So yeah, I think the one that could go immediately would either be the pure tile or the TV tile. I think the TV tile could be merged because you have a TV tile in AEW, so it makes
exactly.
more sense to merge it. Plus, I feel like I've always been a fan of the pure tile, and I think it's something different that brings something different to Ring of Honor, and like it's like the code in a sense, it represents the code of Ring of Honor, what it always stood for. So it kind of makes sense to keep that around. Plus, was only recently brought back, so it's kind of like negative, I guess, if you get rid of that already.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You mentioned the TV title being merged with the TNT title because the TNT title is
Yeah.
essentially AEW's TV title.
Yeah.
But then also, in the same breath, the ROH World Tag Team Champions are
Yeah.
Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, who are on AEW TV every week.
Yeah.
The World Six-Man Champions of ROH are
Oh,
Bullet Club Gold,
yeah,
Jay
that's the
White.
title I forgot.
Yeah, Jay White and the Guns, who again are
Yeah.
on AEW TV every week. And we
Mm.
have that title, the tag title, as well as the AEW Six-Man and AEW tag title. So
Yeah.
it feels just very bloated.
Yeah. Like I said, I forgot about the six. I was trying to think what was the other title that I was missing then. But yeah, I think that one can also tag team. And I thought they might have made an angle where like with New Japan because Tag League late last year, Hanare and I think it was Great Okan beat um the of the Ring of Honor six-man tag title, the Gates of Agony, and they said they would be coming for the ROH six-man tag team titles at some point in the future, and they already had a shot at the New Japan's never openweight six-man tag team title. So I was like, if the champions and get the never openweight tag team titles, they beat the Ring of Honor six-man tag team titles. What if they show up on a win that as well and merge and make like a trios triple crown thing? So like again, it's like
Yeah.
it gets rid of it, but creates like one massive division in a sense. So it's like feels important, but it feels like you have factions, you have members that will want to in the end, but didn't happen. But yeah, I think the six-man tiles and the trio style can get merged. Tag team tiles depends. I know, like in terms of the usage, I think the Ring of Honor tag team tiles have not been used as well. Like it's been mainly like ROH teams. I mean, sorry, AEW teams carrying the
Exactly.
belts. So there's an argument can be made, but I feel like if you want to keep Ring of Honor still like a kind of like secondary separate, but I think the core element of having tag belts like NXT have their own tag team belts, I think that still needs to be there. So I think I can see that. So I would say keep the world title, keep the pure title, keep the women's title, and keep the tag title. So go from 6 to 4 really for Ring of Honor, and I think that would work.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying about the booking because they don't seem to present ROH
Yeah.
sometimes as a separate brand. They kind of just mix and match whoever into both AEW and ROH shows, which kind of devalues the championships a little bit. The way they have done it right is with Athena because Athena is never on Dynamite or Collision, and she
Yeah.
has done some great work as the ROH Women's Champion. So if they can sort of separate the two brands and say this is ROH, this is our weekly show, we will have storylines specific to there, and then maybe on AEW they can promote those storylines, they can show you video packages of what has happened.
Yeah.
People may take more of an interest in those championships because at the moment it just feels like, well, I don't really know what's going on because everybody's kind of everywhere, which
Exactly.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, which is what we were alluding to. See, Rohit, you mentioned New Japan a few times there.
Yeah.
I am not that up on New Japan.
Yeah.
You are the
I
one-stop
mean, it's
wrestling.
fine. It's honestly it's understandable.
You are,
Yeah.
yeah, you are the one-stop wrestling New Japan expert. So, in terms of New Japan championships, what is your feeling on the amount of titles they have?
I alluded to this towards the start when I mentioned specifically, like in North America, there is a bit too many titles. Now, I'm not saying there aren't too many titles in New Japan because I do think that it is a bit bloated, but in terms of the way they perceive wrestling over there and the way it's booked, it makes a tad more sense. I'll get to that in a second. But first, if I counted correctly, they have 13 active championships.
Which is
So you
more
have the
than WWE and AEW, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So they have the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, Current champion is Tetsuya Naito. The newly minted IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship, which is replacing the US/UK title, which
Yes.
was a replacement kind of for the IC title. Current champion David Finlay. You have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, which is the cruiserweight division. Basically, they call them junior heavyweights over there, which is current champion is El Desperado. You have the Never Openweight Championship, current champion Evil. You have the Strong Openweight Champion, the New Japan Strong Openweight Championship, which is current champion is Eddie Kingston, part of now the Triple Crown, the Continental Triple Crown, if you will. You
Yes.
have the KOPW 2024 Provisional Champion. Weird one. That's a topic for another time if you don't understand it. But I can go into that if you're interested. The current champion is the Great Okan. You have the New Japan World Television Champion, who is also the president of the company, Hiroshi Tanahashi. You have the IWGP World Tag Team Championships. Currently, champions are Chase Owens and Kenta. You have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, which the current champions are Drilla Maloney and Clark Connors.
So
You
that's
have
like a
the strong,
cruiserweight tag
yeah,
title, essentially. Yeah.
cruiserweight tag titles, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
You have the strong openweight tag team championship. Current champion are the Gorillas of Destiny, Hikuleo and El Fantasmo. You have the never openweight six-man tag team championship, currently vacant because previous champions were Tomohiro Ishii, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Kazuchika Okada. But because Okada is leaving, he's vacated the titles. Then you have the IWGP Women's Championship, current champion Mayu Iwatani, and you have the Strong Women's Championship, current champion Julia. If you notice, Strong is like the face of like the American kind of expansion of New Japan. The brand is called New Japan Strong. The weekly show,
Yeah.
when it used to be weekly anyway, was known as New Japan Strong. So the Strong titles are basically from over there. So it's kind of like an NXT or ROH situation, I guess, in a sense. So yeah,
I mean, you've
so
mentioned you've mentioned a lot of championships there. So
yeah.
straight off the bat, what is what is the distinction? I mean, there was about five singles championships there. Obviously,
Hmm.
the distinction of the cruiserweight championship, the world heavyweight championship.
Yeah,
I understand that, but what
yeah,
about like the international championship,
yeah.
the strong championship? Like what can they not, you know, merge those into one or two championships? Why what is the distinction of those championships? What does anything make them special in any way?
In a sense, some of them can be merged, but at the same time, some of them have enough distinctions to be separate. It's like a 50-50. Some fans want them to be merged or get rid of. Other fans love the concept behind them. Some of them were originally failed concepts that turned into other concepts that have now worked, which is very interesting. For example, the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship is the secondary title that they're trying to establish because I feel like New Japan kind of screwed the boat by many people because they originally had the IWGP Intercontinental Championship, which was the secondary title introduced, which was established very well, carried very well by the likes of Shinsuke Nakamura, Kenny Omega, and others, and elevated so highly that it was seen almost on par as the world title in New Japan, even being fan voted one year to main event Wrestle Kingdom over the world title match.
Wow.
So yeah, so it became so big that certain wrestlers wanted to kind of like, they did the classic basic unification, hence the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship from the old IWGP Heavyweight Championship. So they merged the title, but then they realized we don't have now a second title for like the up and coming upper mid card to main eventers or main eventers who aren't in the world title picture at the moment that can compete for that title. So they were kind of like scrambling, and that's where the US title came in because failed kind of title for the Western expansion that didn't work as intended. So that
Yeah.
became the secondary title, which and everyone elevated, and people didn't like it because the connotations behind the name UK US felt like lower than. Why is this the secondary title? We want that intercontinental title back. So recently in storyline, Finley sledgehammered both the two titles that was going to be defended at Wrestle Kingdom. So they basically did a clean slate. They're like, yeah, that happened. This is the new second. This is like the new version of the IC title, really. So they just decided to call it Global because they didn't want to go with the same name. So that's the long, complicated history of that one. The junior title, obviously, cruiserweights. No need to explain. They never open weight. The different acronym because New Japan and most Japanese wrestling companies are more of a sport presented, like a touring sport presented wrestling company. So the acronyms, instead of like the company name, it's like Never and IWGP are like governing bodies. It's almost like in boxing, you have the WBC, WBA, instead of just boxing or whatever promotion, like,
Yeah,
you know,
I know what you mean. Yeah,
name and title. So originally it was a title to replace in a way the IWGP U30 title, which was like under 30, so a title for the youngsters, really. So never, I don't remember the acronym on top of my head, but basically something for like new young blood kind of. That was the idea behind it. And then the first champion of winner of the tournament was someone you might know from ECW, Masato Tanaka.
yes, I remember him. Yeah,
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 he
he had
was the
some
first champion, and I think he
matches,
was at
crazy
least late
matches with
30s.
Mike Awesome back
Mike,
in the day.
awesome, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I think he was like 30s, early 40s, late 30s, early 40s by that point. So it's like okay, but I guess you need someone like that to establish a title. But in the end, young guys weren't really winning the title, and it morphed into more of a strong style fighting spirit. It's basically the workhorse title where if you want that belt, you better come and swing and hit hard, really. And I think certain fans just love that now with that title. So that's why I think it's still around, even though some people may think there's no real need for that. So if I were to describe the hierarchy, it's like the world title, global tile, never open weight tile, really. Those are like the main three singles tiles that I would say that can stick around, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Great job as always, Rohi, on the New Japan side. That's why you're our expert. But yeah, I mean, I think in general, obviously we've listed a hell of a lot of championships
Yeah.
today, and I think in general the championships can be okay. The amount of championships can be fine if they are used right, if they are used
Yeah.
in storylines, if they are booked right, if they are showcased weekly and they are made to feel important. It kind of doesn't matter how many championships you have,
Yeah.
you can make them feel special. So it all comes down to what the booker wants to do with them and how
Yeah.
he wants to showcase them, because you can have like New Japan 13 championships, but if they're all made to feel special, it can work.
Yeah.
It's when they start to get devalued is the when the problems start happening and the titles start to feel like they mean nothing. Um,
Exactly, and that's where, like, if I quickly just mention these two tiles, the World Television tile, New Japan traditionally for tile matches has a 60 minute time limit, so 1 hour time limit. Not all obviously go anywhere close to that, but with the World tile specifically, the World Television tile, it's a 15-minute time limit. So it's like if you want that ball, you gotta try and beat your opponent very quickly. So it's got that nice little like, oh, this is a tile that feels unique because it's gonna be fast paced and it's not gonna be like you don't have the long feeling out process that traditional longer tile matches may have in Japanese wrestling, and it's much more quicker to the point. So it adds that uniqueness to it. The KOPW provisional championship, the reason why it's called provisional, it's a year long championship, and only at the end of the year do you become that champion for that year, and then it resets. So it's a bit confusing if you don't understand it. But the unique thing is the champion and the challenger present stipulations which the fans get to vote for,
Interesting.
and they've been quite unique. So it brings something unique to New Japan. For example, when Great Okan won the title, the previous champion's stipulation got picked, and it was like a 10-minute time limit fit challenge. So they had to every 3 minutes they go do a 30-second of high intensity cardio workout, and then the match is
Wow.
exactly. So for New Japan, it can bring some wacky concepts into it. Like we had some like, a 3 4s match. We've got like um I think it was called three 3 degrees of triad matches and some matches as well, including like arm wrestling matches, drinking contests. So it brings a little bit of
Interesting.
uniqueness and funness to it. So I guess it's like something different to the regular belt. So I guess it has its place, but whether or not the fans want to keep it around or if they rather get rid of it to have less titles, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the key is
Yeah.
if they can be used right, and if there is fan investment in them, and they are getting over as championships and made to feel important. That's great. Yeah, we'll wrap it up there tonight, Rohit.
No
I
problem.
think in summary, it's just loads and loads of championships, maybe too many, but
Yeah. And
let's.
some can be merged.
Some can be
Really.
merged, but maybe if some are used correctly and showcased right and
Yeah.
booked right, they can also work. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting conversation, isn't it?
For sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rohit, thank you so much for this evening, as always.
No problem. Thank you.
And everybody, don't forget to follow One Stop Wrestling on YouTube. What do you guys think? Do you think there are too many championships in the world of wrestling? Rohit, thank you so much. And we will see everybody next time for another One Stop Wrestling podcast. Ciao.